Awesome. Well, good morning. My name is Matt Koomen. I'm the Mosaic pastor here at Community. Welcome to Community. It's early. Typically, I don't have to start preaching till like 10:50 up at the other space. So I had to wake up early to get prepped for this. But I'm so excited to be here this morning and gather with you in worship. Before we start today, I want to show you the picture for today, the image, the artwork that we have. Oh, I don't like looking back there. Look at that's better. Caden Guffey drew this. He's in high school. He just graduated from Zeeland East a few weeks ago here. But this is his depiction of the Sabbath that we're going to be walking into. And it's one of those that I got during this week. And the longer you look at it, the more that jumps out. So I encourage you, if you haven't checked out the artwork, we've got them on display just past the nursery as you're heading towards the gym. So make sure you take a look at those throughout the weeks as we continue. If you have your Bibles, we're going to be continuing in our series on the Ten Commandments on Exodus 20. So you can turn there if you have those. But I want to first take you back to when I was very young. It was the 1930s. And during that time, some of you are awake. I just wanted to see. During the 1930s, during that time, coming out of the Great Depression, the industries were starting to move around more. There were more machines that were coming to life that were making life easier for people. It was making work more productive. More machines with technology and electricity, and all of these things were starting to ramp up. So much so that a guy by the name of John Maynard Keynes wrote an essay titled Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren. So he wrote this in the 1930s. And he made this startling prediction that by the time his grandkids were working, they would most likely only have to work 15 hours a week. Right? He was looking at the progress that the world was making and the way machines were coming to life. He was seeing that a machine that once a man could make 10 parts for the day, a machine was now able to make 100 parts, and that one man could then just work an hour or two, and he'd have the same amount of parts that were made. Like, this would be incredible. Imagine the way of life that he's thinking in the 1930s, thinking, oh, man, by the time my grandkids are working, they'll have such an easy life, right? Because they'll just work a few hours a day or maybe one big day and have the rest of the week off because they'll be producing the same amount of things. And we think about that and we just laugh, right? Because we think like, oh man, it is only, if we look back to our lives, we think many of us, if we're not even still doing this, worked 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Even though production continues to get higher and higher, we still continue to work more and more, and we get tired, but we continue to put in more and more hours. And there's something about that. We were created to work. I think God designed us in a special way to work, but how many of us crave a break? And how many of us crave rest? How many of us crave time? And even when we do get it, even when we get moments to rest, sometimes we're more tired coming out of that because our body's been craving it so much. And even for those of you who are retired, who get to have more time, I've known a lot of people who entered retirement and are all of a sudden more busy than they were before they retired. Right? Because there's so many opportunities in this world. There's so many things that can demand our attention and our time. And often we are busy. Right? We're busy with lots of different things. See, luckily for us, God gave us a gift. And I want to argue today that it is a gift that many of us don't take advantage of. Many of us don't use this gift to the full potential that we could. And I want to introduce that to you this morning. But we're going to read through the Ten Commandments. We're going to read up to the Sabbath one. We'll read through that one as well. But I will also want to remind you where we've been throughout the series so far. So we'll be reading through this whole thing starting in Exodus 20 in verse 1. And God spoke all these words, I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in the heavens above or in the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I am the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. And for this week, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall do no work, neither you, nor your son, nor daughter, nor your male or female servant, your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and made it holy. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Right? On it you shall do no work. See, I think when we think about Sabbath, it is a unique command here from God. And it seems a little bit more complex than the others. Right? We can have a good handle on some of the other commandments that we've gone through so far. Not having other gods. Okay, that makes sense. We serve a God who is above all gods. He's showed us that in what he could do in getting his people out of Egypt. Right? We can have a good handle on not having other idols, because God doesn't want us to have images of him. He doesn't want us to try carve him into something that we can fit into our pocket. I think primarily because he's already made images. He's already made us in his image. Don't go making other images of me. Or we can get a handle on what that looks like. We can get a handle on not misusing God's name or misrepresenting who God is. Because if we understand that we are the image of God, then we understand that we are image bearers for him. So when people see us, when they look at us, when they see our actions and interactions with people, they see God's character through us. So are we representing him well? Or we can understand all of these things, even if we have a hard time doing them sometimes. But this Sabbath one is a hard one to figure out. Right? What does it mean? What does it mean to keep it holy? What does it mean not to work? Because some people should work. We don't want everything to be closed down. There's all these, we put stipulations on Sabbath often. So what does this actually look like? And if anyone was hoping for a quick, simple list, and then we'll get on our Memorial Day weekend, I wish I could give that to you. But I wanna spend some time really diving into what we've seen, even what we've put on Sabbath as humans, as people, what we've named Sabbath to be, what God names it to be, how Jesus answers those things, and how we fit into that today. But I first want to talk about the difference between rest or sleep and Sabbath, because sometimes people just think, okay, it's named a day of rest, which it is, but what's the difference between rest and sleep and Sabbath? Because there is a big difference here. The first big difference is when you avoid rest, when you avoid sleep, at some point your body is going to say no. It's going to demand you go to sleep. I've got 3 beautiful girls, 4.5, 3, and 1 now. They're growing up so fast. About 6 months ago, we pulled our middle child's pipe, so she could no longer have her pipe, which as parents, if you've walked through that, you know, like the traumatic experience that can be. But after we pulled that pipe from her, she refuses to take naps during the day, which was one of my spots during the day where it was just quiet. And now she's just alive in the house, right? And but if we ever go for a ride at like 3 or 4 during the afternoon, it doesn't matter where we're going or how exciting that ride is. You can look back, and in the back seat, in the car seat, you can see Macy's eyes just start to get heavy. And like you can at this point you don't want her to go to sleep, because then the night is going to be harder, right? You understand that, so it's like you're trying to keep her up and you're trying to keep her awake, and those eyes are just getting heavier and heavier, and you're like, no, wake up, look at where we're going. You try to play I Spy with something, but at some point, if that ride is long enough, her body will no longer be able to stay awake, and her body forces her to shut her eyes. And it doesn't matter how loud I'm shouting at her, how low that window is, so she's getting blown by the wind, right? All that stuff. It doesn't matter. Her body is going to force her to go to sleep. And I'm seeing some of that from you today here. Make sure we're all paying attention here. We'll get there, I promise. But as people, right, we work long, we work hard hours, and our bodies, when we think about sleep, when we think about rest, our bodies will force us to do that, right? Our bodies will force us to get some sleep, to get some rest. Many of you know people who will work hard and hard and hard until the point where they get sick, right? And their body literally says, I can't do it anymore. You have to lay in bed for a bit because sickness comes on you, right? We have that tendency to work so hard, and our body will demand sleep or demand rest at some point. But Sabbath is different, right? Our bodies don't demand Sabbath like it does sleep, right? Sabbath is much easier to defy. Sabbath is much easier to avoid. And this is the enormous difference between rest and Sabbath. And sometimes they get correlated together, but there is that big difference in it. And it's interesting that we as humans, when we think about Sabbath, sometimes we think, okay, it is just rest. And maybe the rest is just laying on the couch and turning on Netflix and watching something, binge watching something, turning on, and I'm highly guilty of this, turning on a football game. And all of a sudden 3 or 4 hours have gone by, and we think, oh yeah, that's Sabbath. But is it though? Right? Is that actually Sabbath? You see, it's not rest that Sabbath is actually asking for. So when I'm tired, when I am emotionally and physically exhausted, I think sometimes the only thing I want to do is lay on the couch with a big bag of Doritos and turn on the TV and watch who gets the next rose. Right? And it's like, is that actually going to give me life? Right, I know at the end of a few hours of binge watching that, like, I'll get up. I won't get up from the couch saying, wow, that has inspired me. I am so full of life now to take back life again. Right, now I've got the energy to go about my day. Right, what I found is that when I do those things, when I rest in how I think I should rest, that actually drains me more. Right, I get up from the couch and I'm more tired than I was before. That has not given me any life. Right, that kind of rest does not give life. And maybe you're sitting there out there thinking, Matt, you've got no idea what I'm going through. Right, you don't understand my days. You don't understand my busyness, the chaos of my work, the demands that life takes from me. I don't have a day to give up. Right, God says it's a day, that to give him a day. But you're saying, I can't do that. I look at my schedule. I don't know where that would fit in. I want to give you a partial answer with a unique statistic, and then I want to talk about what Jesus has to say about it. Okay, this is what has been bonkers for me when I was looking into this. I'm going to be honest with you. As I was prepping through this, I had about 50 minutes worth of content. So I cut it down to 48. So we'll get through it today. But there's so much interesting stuff on Sabbath. If you're a book person, Mark Buchanan wrote The Rest of God. Absolutely incredible. Like, we have this whole book underlined, essentially. So if you are a book reader, take a look at that book. It is incredible. But there's a statistic that me and my wife came across. We really dove into this idea of Sabbath about 9 months ago, as we were looking into it. This statistic came up, and it's about Seventh-day Adventists. Seventh-day Adventists, they, if you're unfamiliar with church structure or church history, I'm not going to spend much time on it, but they are also Protestant like us. So there's a few like Lutheran, Reformed, Baptist, Methodist, Seventh-day Adventists. We all have very similar beliefs with a few different pieces to it. Okay, so Seventh-day Adventists, they are very strict on following the Sabbath. They follow it very closely, so much so that they believe it's Friday at sundown to Saturday at sundown, and they do a full day of it. So when the sun goes down, regardless of whether it's winter or summer, that is when Sabbath starts for them on Friday, and then it ends on Saturday when sun goes. There's a beauty to that, I think. But what I find most fascinating about this is there was some research done on the Seventh-day Adventists, and they've realized that, let's see here, they've realized that these people live on average about 10 years longer than the average American. Weird, right? I wonder why, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'm going to make some lines here and see if you follow along. So they believe in rest on the Sabbath, and not just rest, not just getting on the couch, but they believe in resting in God, resting in who He is. They participate in Sabbath really well, I believe. Now, if we do some math here, for those of you who enjoy math, do some math with me here. How many days per year, or how many Sundays per year? 52. Perfect. You guys are alive. This is great. Okay. On an average span of your lifetime, say in America, I believe it's around 78 years right now is the average expectancy. If we times 52 Sundays by 78 years long, right, you get to have 4,056 opportunities to Sabbath on average. Okay, so Seventh-day Adventists, if we do the math, they have about that many Sabbaths that they participate in. Now, is it a coincidence that then if you divide that 4,065 by how many days in a year? 365. That number comes out to 11 years. That's kind of odd. Do we serve a God of coincidences? I don't think so. Am I making ties that may not be there? I don't think so. I think there is something about this that, because if we look at this 10 Commandment, if we look at the Sabbath and say, God has given this to us as a gift, right? He's not looking to take days out of our lives. He's not looking to create more heartache for us. He's saying, hey, I have given you this day as a gift, and there is just something beautiful about that, isn't there? Like God's saying, no, I'm not taking anything away. I want you to be able to enjoy life as you're living it, not just at the end when you're able to retire, right? What if God is actually truly giving the Sabbath to us as a gift? See, how many people go through their lives? I'm one of these, and we hurry through things. We hurry through our lives. We're not present in the things that we want to be in, and by the end of our lives, we say, I wish I was more present in the day today. And I think many of us, as we get older, wish we had done that. Seeing our kids grow up, seeing that we have young kids now, I have so many people come up to us, and we're just told, it goes so fast. Right, for those of you who have raised kids, you know this. Right? The nights are long, but the years fly by. We go through life in such a hurry sometimes that we don't pause and rest. And what if we actually believed that God was giving us a day a week to say, enjoy it. Don't wait. Enjoy it one day a week. Stop, slow down, and see what life I have given you. See, I think about this for my own life. All right, how often am I too busy or am I in too much of a rush that I say no to pushing the kids on the swing? Oh man, so often they run up to me, can you push me on the swing? Daddy's got something going on in a minute. All right, how often do I say no to jumping on the tramp with them? I'm in fear of breaking a hip at this point, but right, that's beside the point. How often are we worried about, or are we too busy to read one more story, even to sitting on the couch with my wife to talk about the day instead of having my phone out because I'm trying to do more things, or to help a friend with a project at their house. Instead, we've got a list of projects at our own house that we need done. See, what's so fascinating to me is often we don't even remember what we're in a hurry to do. Right? We can think back to all the things that we missed in our lives, but we can't think about the things that we accomplished while we were in a hurry, right? What if God said, I have a day for you. One day a week, you get to stop and enjoy and rest in me and rest in what I have given you. The Sabbath truly is a gift, right? The Sabbath is a gift. But the question is, how do we use it? Right, what do we do with Sabbath? How do we do this day well? First thing is, what do we know about it? And I think all of us bring in an interesting perspective in Sabbath and what we know about it. I've had a few conversations over the course of this last week about interesting things, interesting laws or rules that they grew up with when they had Sabbath. I'd love to hear more from you guys as well if we get time after the service. But my mom, growing up, they had a pool in their backyard. So my mom was a Vareki, so Press and Wanda Vareki. I know some of you may know them. But they had a pool in their backyard. And they loved swimming. They had a lot of kids. So I've got aunts and uncles, and they would love swimming in the pool. But on Sundays, on Sabbath, they could go in the pool, which I think some people couldn't even go in the pool, right? But they could go in the pool, but they could not splash. That was the line. You may wade in, and you may stand in the water, kind of like a shower, and you may stand there quietly. You may swim, but do not splash. Wild, right? We think back to that, and we laugh at things like that. But man, how many different rules like that do we have? Some of the other ones I've heard, they couldn't play with neighbor kids outside. That was, you could be outside playing in the backyard, but not with the neighbor kids, right? That would be too much fun. You may not play with other people around here. Anyone not allowed to ride bikes on Sunday, right? Yep. Oh man, a lot of you, look at that. How dare we ride bikes on Sunday? That is shocking. I couldn't scream or be loud outside. One that I heard, this was posted on Facebook after I made a post on this. My buddy's grandma stored their boat in her barn, and they weren't allowed to fish on Sundays. So when she wasn't around, they would sneak in and steal the boat to fish on Sunday nights after church. So bringing in the stealing to break the Sabbath. This is crazy. Some of the others I heard even before this message today, not being allowed to watch TV, right? Anyone? Not allowed to watch TV unless it was The Sound of Music, because it was about nuns. So that makes it all better. What? Like, this is just crazy. But we bring those types of experiences in, right? We were raised around different laws and different rules around the Sabbath of things that we could do and things that we couldn't do. And I've had conversations with people who are like, growing up, they did not look forward to Sabbath. Sabbath was not a day of joy because there were so many rules. I mean, you just had to soak in a pool. Like, of course we're not looking forward to Sabbath. Of course we're not living into it fully, because we bring in these different experiences around what Sabbath looks like. So if you can, I know it's hard to take not biking on the Sabbath out of this, but take all of your past experience out for a moment. And I want to truly look at what does Scripture say about it? What are we allowed to do on the Sabbath? What aren't we allowed to do about the Sabbath? And what does Jesus say about it? Because I've had some people say, well, Jesus has come so we don't need to do Sabbath anymore because he's fulfilled that in who he is. So what is that even piece in here as well? Okay, so this first one I want to look at is in Deuteronomy. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because what we find is the Israelites in Exodus are wandering the desert, and that is when the Ten Commandments have been given. Now, at the end of their wanderings around the desert, they're about to go into the Promised Land. And in Deuteronomy, the Ten Commandments are restated again. So they have not changed. They have remained consistent. So if you want to look at that, that is in Deuteronomy 5, I believe. But I want to jump ahead into what Jesus and his interactions with the Sabbath are, and what often the negative interactions that people had with Jesus on the Sabbath. So there's two stories I want to look at. One from Mark 2 and the other from Luke 13. First one, Mark 2, verse 23. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through some grain fields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some heads of grain. Remember, this is on the Sabbath. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are you doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" He answered, "Have you never heard what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. And he also gave some to his companions." Verse 27, "Then he said to them, The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. It's a wonderful line there. But right, the disciples are hungry. They're walking around. They've been traveling all over with Jesus. And I'm sure they're famished in a way, and they're picking some grains as they're passing along. They're not harvesting the whole field. And Jesus is saying, these guys are hungry. Right? Are we not allowed to eat on the Sabbath? Right, another story, Luke 13, starting in verse 10. On the Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, the synagogue leaders said to the people, "There are 6 days for work, so come and be healed on those days, not on the Sabbath." Verse 15, the Lord answered them, "You hypocrites! Doesn't each of you on the Sabbath untie your ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound for 18 years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what has bound her?" So now with these religious leaders, this is a similar story throughout the Gospels of the religious leaders trying to find fault in Jesus. And I don't want to find full fault in them because I do believe that their intentions were pure, but their heart is in the completely wrong spot. Right? They've taken these 10 commandments that we have, and they do not want to break them. So they've created more laws and regulations and rules around these, and all of a sudden you have all of these different things you're not allowed to do, and God said, hang on, that's not what this was about to begin with. I was giving you a gift. Like, as my people, you get to have a day off. Why are you making it about all of these different things? And Jesus comes in the New Testament and explains, what does this mean? What are these laws? We read this in Matthew 5:17. This is what Jesus is. "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." Jesus did the same thing with the Sabbath. He's not getting rid of the Sabbath. He's explaining in better detail, what does it mean? What you have been doing, the way you have been living, is not how God intended this to be. It's a gift not to hold you down or hold you back. You see, Jesus broke man-made Sabbath regulations. He broke man-made Sabbath regulations. We see throughout the New Testament and throughout the Gospels that Jesus healed. He fed. He claimed to rescue animals that had fallen into wells, or he would lead animals to water. Right, and here's the issue that I think we have with this today. We, as people, take this command, take this law as more of a suggestion. Or we may understand and we may know that this may be the best way to live, right? It would be great to have a day off one day a week, and it'd be great to slow down and rest and relax in who God is. But do we really have the time for it? Right? It's more of an inconvenience. We take it as a suggestion. But God said in this command, He said, "Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy." Keep it holy. See, this word holy means something that's sacred, something that is set apart for God. So God is saying, when He's saying, keep this day holy, He's saying, set this day apart for me. Set it apart for me to have relationship with you. See, God wants us to make Sunday, or whatever day we end up taking the Sabbath, to feel different from the other days. Right, to be a different day that we're able to live in His grace. This day was made for us, and God gave it to us for your sake and for my sake and for our benefits. So the question is, how do we do it then? Right, if we believe Jesus came and fulfilled it, and we believe that it is truly a gift for us to receive, how do we do it then? I think the first thing is we need to get rid of the excuses. We're all busy. We've all got chaotic lives. We all have things that line up in our lives. And as a church, we need to realize that God has given this to us as a gift to draw closer to Him, to enjoy His creation, and to enjoy the gifts that He truly has given us. Maybe your excuse is that I've got a weird work schedule. I'm a nurse. I'm a doctor. I work different shifts. My days change. I don't get a day all the time. Well, create in your schedule. Stop making excuses and put your calendar out and create 4 days a month then where you get to Sabbath, where you get to enjoy what God has done for you. Stop doing what you ought to do and start doing, we've got 6 days to do that, right? We've got 6 days to do things that we ought to do. Sabbath is a day to not have to do the oughts in our life. I love this line from the book that sums it up so well. It says this: "It is the one day when the only thing you must do is not do the things you must." It is the one day when the only thing you must do is not do the things you must. So if you hate doing dishes, right, anyone in that line? I think a lot of us can line up to that party. Or if you hate doing dishes, do them the night before. Make sure the kitchen is clean so when you come down on Sabbath morning or that night before, whenever you want to start the Sabbath, that the house is clean and you can wake up and look at an empty sink and just not even feel the pressure of doing those things. Do you sit at a desk all week during work? Maybe Sabbath for you is getting outside, and maybe it's even grabbing an axe and splitting some wood, right? Imagine that. Maybe splitting wood brings you life because you're able to be outside and you can hear the birds chirping and you can feel muscles that you don't normally use during the week. You feel what God has given you and the crack of an axe against the wood, just the production from that. Like that just, maybe there's something beautiful about that for you. Maybe it's mowing the lawn. How dare he? He did not just say that from the stage. And maybe it is mowing the lawn. I love mowing the lawn. I thoroughly enjoy that. I love seeing the crisp lines after I've gone. I love looking at the lawn after and just smelling the grass that's been cut. I find great joy in it. I put in my headphones and I've got like some Anthem Lights worship music typically going on where I'm singing away on the lawnmower and neighbors are gawking going past. Right? I love it. I thoroughly enjoy it. Maybe mowing the lawn for you is a beautiful thing to do. Don't do the oughts. Find the things that you find joy in. You see, because we can so easily become like the religious leaders, can't we? Where we start naming the things we should not do on the Sabbath, the things we are not allowed to do. And we create laws and regulations and we put those on other people as well. So a few takeaways for today. And these takeaways come from who Jesus is and the way that I've seen him live Sabbath out as well. First one is this: focus on God. Make this a part of your Sabbath. The point is not just to rest. Sabbath was not given to us just to rest. It was given to rest in God and what he is for us. See, God has set this day apart. It is different. And for his people, they get to enjoy a day where they don't have to do all of the things. If we are people who are different in God, we get to enjoy that. How do we do that? For me, I feel closest to God when I'm going on a walk in nature. Sometimes I'll put headphones in. A lot of times, silence is better for me because I tend to fill silence with talking. If you're on staff here, many of them are like, Matt can't handle silence, so I just start telling stories, right? I often don't have silence in my life. So it's in those moments, if I'm walking around and I'm silent, like that's when I feel close to God because I don't have the distractions of this world. So for me, I enjoy going on walks. Maybe for you, it's journaling and remembering where God has been faithful and looking back in your journal to see the things you had prayed for and how God had answered those things. Maybe for you, it's sitting down with the Bible and just reading the story of what God has given you and the faithfulness that God has been in your life from the beginning of the Bible to the end. He's given this to us as a gift to say, you want to know who I am, who my character is? Just start reading. Read what he has given you. Maybe for you, it's mowing the lawn. Find the things that connect you closest with God and do those. That's the first thing. Focus on God. Second thing, focus on family and friends. Look around to the people that are close to you. And I think we see this with Jesus, the way he gathers people around meals. I think he did this often on the Sabbath. He was with his disciples on the Sabbath. And I think from that first story that we even read from Jesus and being caught for picking grain, like I think in this, we can understand that we should eat well on the Sabbath. We should eat well together. Gather people around your table and enjoy good food and conversation together. Invite people over for dinner. Have a game night with your friends. Laugh. Enjoy going to the beach with your friends. Ride on your bike with your neighbors. Like, do both things at one time. Like, that's crazy. But do things with friends. God has given you good people in your lives. Enjoy them. And in those moments, ask them, where have you seen God? What's God been doing in your life? Continue to bring God the glory in all of those things. Say yes to your kids. That's one thing we've been trying to be very adamant about when we Sabbath together as a family. We Sabbath on Fridays. And on Fridays, our girls know that we try to say yes to them as much as possible. Dad, can you push me on the swing? Yes. Can you jump on the tramp with me? Yes. Like that is the day that we say yes to our kids, because my ought to list, my things that need to get done list get fully pushed to the side, and we walk into Sabbath with a clean slate to say, God, how would you like us to use this day? And a piece of that is loving on our friends, loving on our family, and spending time with them. Enjoy people. If we believe that we are made in the image of God, then let's spend time with people who are also in that image. So, focus on friends and family. We've got focus on God, focus on friends and family, and last but not least, serve. We hear the stories about Jesus on the Sabbath healing and serving people. And I find it so interesting that when I think about tasks in my life, moving rocks or digging dirt and doing just outdoor things, some of the things that drain energy for me when I'm at my house. If I'm going to do that for a friend, all of a sudden I leave my friend's house more full of life from the same task that would have drained me at my house. Right? I wonder if that has anything to do with serving. That God created us to serve, to look out for our neighbor, to look out for our friends, to look out for our coworkers and say, let me help you with those things. And maybe that's a piece of when we serve, we're showing the image of God in us for this world. So serve those around you. Focus on God. Focus on friends and family. And look for opportunities to serve. Here's the golden rule of all of this. Find the things that give you and your friends and your family life. And do those things. Do them for the glory of God, because He has given you this day as a gift. As people of God, this isn't a day that we have to sit in a cold, dark room and not have any fun. We are allowed to live life to the full in this. And as people of God, we get to do something that this world so desperately longs for. So what are you waiting for? Will you pray with me? Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. And I thank you for the blessing of being able to walk through the 10 Commandments and this gift that you've given to us. And God, I ask that even though many of us walk into this space with different ideas of what this day means, I ask that you give us clarity on it for what it means for us specifically, because it can look different for all of us. God, help us see what gives us life. Help us see what draws us close to you. And allow us the freedom and the space to live into those things for you. We ask this all in your name we pray. Amen.